Hello there everybody, how's it going? I am the Timeister and welcome back to the greater Timbukton region. In today's episode, guys, we are going to be basically continuing off where we left off in the last episode. So what I am working on right now is detailing our grain sort of shipping facility. And what you're seeing me build right now is sort of a trial and error kind of build. So I have a general idea on what I want to accomplish here, but I'm not really sure what props and stuff to use. So I'm basically just using a collection of a bunch of different things and mashing them together and hoping it looks pretty cool. So spoiler alert, it ends up looking all right, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way this little thing here turned out. So basically what I'm trying to do now is to build a grain transfer rail sort of system where train cars will just sort of pile up at the facility here. The grain will be transported from the giant silos that we placed in the last episode directly to these rail carts to be shipped out, or even the opposite. Grain can be shipped in from elsewhere and be placed into the reserves. So that's pretty much what's going on right now, and you'll see in just a minute here that I placed down some pretty unique props and things to make this look pretty reasonable. Not sure really how realistic it would be. I know back a few episodes ago when we were working on the farmlands just outside of Burton, I would plop down these huge grain silos which were sort of pre-built on the workshop, and I'd place those down and they look pretty good. But now we're going to place down some modern industries. So that is what is going on right now. A little later in the episode, we're going to move on into another section of the port. The next section we're going to work on is a little bit more generalized, so it's not really going to be any specific type of industry. Just going to be a bunch of warehouses and some cranes and stuff like that. And after that, we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff. I'm going to plop down a large shipbuilding plant, or an assembly plant, where ship parts are built and assembled together. So we'll get into that a little later. So for now, I'm going a little bit detail intensive, a little bit more than I usually do, placing down this dirt here. Obviously, with these grain carts, you'll have a little bit of spillage every now and again where some grain and stuff will fall down on the ground, and over time that accumulates. So I thought it would be pretty realistic to just plop down a bunch of dirt and stuff which looks like grain, and just sort of make a big mess out of it. So the way the port is shaping up, and with the amount of footage that I have collected, we should be able to produce one more episode of the port series before we move on to another project. So initially I wasn't sure if there was going to be 3 or 4 parts, but it looks like there is going to be 3 parts, as I've accumulated enough footage now to sort of cram everything together, and I think 3 will be enough. And I'm pretty excited to get into the next episode as well, and to showcase that to you guys, because we get into the military port, or the naval port of the city. So it's a pretty big project, it's pretty cool, and I can't wait to show that to you guys. So it's all pre-recorded, everything is all set up. I just have to edit the footage now and sort of put everything into place. So now moving on to the next part of the port, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the sort of generic industries. As you can see, we just have a bunch of warehouses and some cranes and stuff. And for this part of the build, I've actually asked for a little bit of help from Bisquicklerhausen, just because of all of his knowledge with anything train related. He's been pretty helpful in the past when developing Burton. And I basically asked him, what sort of rail carts would you expect to find in this sort of setting right here? You know, it's not really a container ship port. There's not really any big, container cranes. These are more what you would call bulk cranes. So they just have these big hooks on the end where you would raise like pallets of different things or bundles of bulk carriage instead of crates such as I'm placing down right now. So this is before I asked for help. And then I quickly realized, like, wait, this doesn't look really correct. So thanks again for that. And it helps to add a little bit of realism amongst the chaos and unrealistic things that I place down in the series. It's so difficult to sort of create like super realistic things in this game without knowing exactly how everything works. So basically, the type of rail cart which would be appropriate in this area are called bulk carriers, apparently, based on what Bisquicklerhausen has explained to me. So I'm just gonna take his word for it because he knows a lot more than I do when it comes to anything rail related. So basically, this port would be an entry port for parts and different goods, I guess, for the shipbuilding facility that will be the next pier over. And generally any bulk item that would be required in the city would come to this port here. So this is why you find these sort of bulk carriers. So here I think we have some lumber, and just beside them we have like these enclosed containers where you would store different goods and things. We're gonna plop down some pipes, as you see me plopping down right now. So a variety of different things. It's not just enclosed containers such as you find in various ports. You have this sort of assortment of different type of cargo. And again, this boat that I plopped down right here is not very realistic because it is a container ship and it would most likely be parked somewhere else. So I think I end up getting rid of it, and well, maybe not. Anyway, I don't remember. This was recorded like 3 weeks ago. So yeah, that is basically what's going on here. As for what's coming up next after the port, I'm not really decided, but at the end of next episode, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of choice on where the series goes. So I'm probably going to give you guys the option of what part of the city you would like to see developed next, and your choices will most likely be either the University of Timbukton that will be built. So again, I'm basing this series off of the SimCity 4 version of the city, so I'm trying to keep everything in relatively the same location. So there will be a big university downtown. There will be some more industries around town. So anyways, without giving away too much, that is basically what's going to go on in next episode. Now, as you can see, I've completely reshaped the entire port area, and I don't actually end up going with this schematic here. I end up changing it a little bit more. And the reason I did this was I thought that I had too much room, too much land to play around with, and I was afraid that everything would look sort of empty and too spaced out, because I like everything to be sort of compact, and I like to have my areas look like everything has its purpose, and nothing is just like randomly and mindlessly placed down. So I just ate up a little bit of room here. So right now, these large warehouses that I've just plopped down here, this is the giant ship factory. And again, this is actually based off of the ship assembly line in Halifax. It's where I got the idea from, at least. And it kind of looks similar to it as well. It's just a really long and huge warehouse right near downtown. And I thought that I would just create something similar to this. So again, I'm just sort of plopping everything down in a general sense, I guess. I'm going to move everything about and finalize everything a little bit later, but this is basically where everything will be pieced together. And just beside it, I plopped down this dry dock here where the assembled ship will be finally put together and launched out to sea upon its completion. But everything needs to first be assembled in the plant. So all the metal and pipes and lumber and everything that was imported into the port would finally end up into these giant factories here. And there will also be a rail connection, as you can see on your screen right now, directly to this facility. Although it won't be very major, as Timbukton receives a lot more boat traffic than it does train traffic, as pretty similarly to any port city, I would assume. You don't really see any rail all that often now. Now again, I try to keep Timbukton as functional as possible, and with this dry dock here, it's an actual factory within the game, so it requires different resources. I think you need like metal and wood and a whole bunch of different materials to actually get this plant functional in-game. So I decided to plop down a bunch of warehouses and things that will eventually be filled in with the required materials. So a little later in the series, I would actually like to plop down the necessary factories to be able to build these ships. So it won't be the dry dock won't be running for quite some time yet, as there's not really any room for any large factories in Timbukton. So we'll have to wait until we get farther out into the suburbs and stuff. But I eventually plan on making this ship port completely functional. So you'll just have to stay tuned for that, because I'd like to feature some factories throughout the series. Now, with the completion of this general industries pier and the partial completion of our ship assembly plant just next door, I'm going to start to detail the area just a little bit here before moving on to the naval base next episode. So we're not going to touch that at all this episode, so you'll just have to stay tuned for that for the final part of the port series, and we'll be moving on to something later in not the next episode, but the next one after that. So as for detailing, a lot of these ports obviously need parking and stuff for vehicles and the workers and stuff, so I'm gonna start to plop down some parking lots. And I didn't choose the parking lot roads for this construction due to space constraints, and I sort of figured like this entire area is already pavement anyways, so based on what I've seen on Google Maps, parking lots within ports and stuff don't really contain like curbs and different things. It's just usually just a big flat area of pavement with lines and stuff painted wherever parking lots would be. So I didn't really overcomplicate things with this. I just stayed simple and placed down some normal parking lots. And one final detail that I'm working on right now is adding a loading dock into this huge plant right here. And I was sort of playing around with a whole bunch of different props and assets and different things that I could use to make this look pretty cool. And it dawned on me that I don't have to look too far, as I can simply use the medium, or is it the large warehouse? I think it's the large warehouse that is in game. So by plopping this right here, just look how awesome that looks. It fits perfectly into the plant. There's not really any clashing of building themes here. It just perfectly integrates itself, and it looks super realistic. So I just had to move around the plant a little bit, as well as this rail line, as I thought it was pretty close to the truck loading docks. So I just shoved everything aside a little bit, made a little bit of room, and as you can see, it looks superb. So yeah, with all that being complete, I really hope you enjoyed this episode, as did I in creating it. I'm having a ton of fun just constructing this port here, as it's not something that I've ever experimented before. So like I said, stay tuned for the next episode, as we're going to get into the military, or the naval base, and that's going to be something pretty spectacular. I'm pretty sure you guys are going to like that episode. So stay tuned. And with all that being said, guys, if you like this video, as usual, please give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and don't forget to click that bell icon as well. I've had a few subscribers complain of not receiving notifications or not knowing when I release a video, and they'll just click on my channel a month later and see that I've uploaded like 5 videos. So be sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss any updates. And also, guys, be sure to stay till the end of the video, as there are some pretty awesome cinematics coming up. I didn't include any cinematics in the last episode, as the port really wasn't complete yet enough to create some pretty cool cinematics. But with the completion of this episode, I finally have enough to create some decent cinematics. So stay tuned for that. And so as usual, guys, until the next episode, please take care.